Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again with just a few closing thoughts on the Cyclone Strength Stack Maroider, which basically achieved what it set out to do, be massive and map relatively well. So character got to, I don't know, 92 or some shit. I couldn't really be too bothered just playing a fairly vanilla Cyclone build that didn't have anything particularly special going on in it for like damage or mechanics or some shit. So I wasn't going to play it for too long, and the entire point of the character was to basically just cheese shrines so I can try and get the shrine challenge out of the way from the Atlas, and it ended up doing that. So I'm just spamming domination shrines using a blunderbore and gull, and then eventually just getting lots and lots of shrines throughout almost every single map, and eventually getting a covetous and killing the delirium and the breach bosses like I needed to. Got me to the point where I was happy with the outcome of the character, more or less. It's a bit whatever for single target, and I don't think a Cyclone build's ever going to be particularly good at the moment without vast amounts of investment. It isn't quite how it used to be, I think, when we could do Staff Cyclone as a Chieftain with similar setup like this, but it was Staff instead of just Strength Stack. And that worked real well, and you can still do that, but it does have like more of an entry barrier, and then it's still going to taper off at probably about 10 to 15 million DPS, which isn't mind-blowing for something that has to be extremely melee. And that's where it all kind of starts to fall apart in the end game. So this type of a build, even this one right here, is, I don't know, like 4 million DPS, something like that total. That's with like Cyclone, Shockwave, and typically a couple of totems up, and that's good enough for regular endgame. It's still a bit uncomfortable being pure melee, having to wait your turn occasionally for attacks and mechanics and all that shit, and then it will just like completely fall apart on something like Ubers because you just don't have the time to ever be up in the boss's face. But as you can see for mapping, it's not too bad once you start stacking some shrines. Without the shrines, I mean, your movement speed's a little slow, your area is not too bad, and your damage is okay, but it doesn't feel great on Sentinels, for example. If you start sentineling your shit, then you're going to have to put your totems down and actually like spin on them for a couple of seconds, and that is kind of annoying. So that's why I'm saying it doesn't feel like it's got the best DPS for that sort of shit, because a few million just doesn't really properly cut it for Sentinels. And on top of that, we are like building around Shockwave, which has a cooldown for the amount of shockwaves you can do in a certain amount of time. If you come into a boss, you can drop 5 shockwaves real quick and it feels pretty good. If you are just constantly spinning, then it's only going to have as many as it's refreshing, which won't feel amazing. But as you can see, yeah, with the right shrines, it's pretty cool. And you can also turn the build into kind of a leap slam build if you pick up the right shrines. So this is with Echoing Shrine and I think Accelerate. Can't really see from the small icons. And Echoing Shrine completely turns your Leap Slam into an attack, essentially, since it pretty close to gives you multi-strike. And as you can see, with the right attack speed, with Leap Slam, it's pretty close to Flicker Strike in the end. You can even just map with this shit. And this is still on a 4-link, which is not like actually suited to damage. So if you really wanted to go like full memes or some shit, and my Leap Slam in my case actually does already clear with its Shockwave, you could go ahead and just like 6-link a Leap Slam and start just slamming around, hoping you pick up Echoing Shrines occasionally, and when you do, yeah, things go off pretty crazily, and it is fairly satisfying. So this is another example of when we're massive, I think, and also have Echoing Shrine, and this is kind of like how you would map. This is still just the 4-link, so I haven't actually like added any links or put it into my main setup or anything like that. And I mean, it works. It definitely works. It's just kind of uncomfortable at times, kind of hard to control, and don't know exactly where it's going to take you if you lose your Echoing Shrine. Probably not very far. But you know, it could be a bit of a meme build. But you can see how with the right shrines and shit going in for the bosses, it's still just, it ends up looking like a damage over time build, like you got poisons or some shit up on the enemy. And yeah, I don't know, bit of a meme. But otherwise, the end game is okay. Like I said, I'm just a bit underwhelmed, and it's not the best for me because there's so many better options out there that you could be playing and having fun with. Whereas this is just at its core a vanilla Cyclone build. You're just going to be cycloning in some bosses and shit, and it'll do okay damage, and it'll get you through the game if that's what you really want to do. Just not blasting through it very quick. So there's going to be like an Elder and a few other bosses and shit. And it is thick enough that it could actually be a fairly reliable build for these as well. Like I think I ended up hitting 6.4k life at 91, something like that. And every single life node is huge because of how low I've gotten my percent life at the moment, how high the flat is, thanks to the strength stacking. If I hit 94, I could hit 7k life comfortably, for example. And it's up to you how thick or how thin you want to make it. I was trying to go from a perspective of like squeezing some sort of decent cyclone DPS out of this, but ultimately it's not gonna get too far. It's just going to be adequate. So I don't want to sell this just so that no one gets disappointed if they try some shit like this, because it's not going to have world-beating, like super fast DPS. It'll have at most adequate DPS, and strength stack stuff or stat stacking can be a little annoying to put together. So it's up to you if you want to try something like this, but the effort isn't necessarily worth the payoff, at least in my mind, given that I could be playing something a bit funkier. But maybe that's also just my problem right now with a bit more of a stale meta where I don't really want to replay Cyclone with no other changes. So could be a me issue. Either way, the character was my first ever use of Blunderbore and stacking Gull, and as well as that, just using the new Maroider skin, so it did what it set out to do. We got thick, we got beefy, and used a couple of new items. Well, somewhat new for myself, is what I'm saying. And it was interesting to put together, okay to play in the end, but nothing too outrageous, and hopefully find some more fun shit to do in the future. But that's the character. It's there if you want to copy it. Budget was probably about 10x, just worth of crafting and getting lucky occasionally and stuff like that. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.